please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Janutus?
Here.
Fluharty?
Here.
Saunders?
Here.
Rhodes? Here. Spinks?
Here.
Cochee?
Here.
Mezek? Here.
Council, you have the minutes of the work session of January 7th, 2019. Any corrections? Seeing none, can I have a motion for acceptance? By Mezek, second by Rhodes. Call the roll, please.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Abstain.
Mezek?
Yes.
And you have the minutes of the regular meeting of January 7th, 2019. Any corrections to that one? Seeing none, can I have a motion for acceptance by Janutus, second by Spinks. Call the roll, please.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Mezek?
Yes.
Abstain.
Cochee? You know, I jumped right over you.
Yes, you did.
Sorry.
I feel so left out. No presentations tonight. Sorry I missed the presentations last week with the promotions of the two police officers. So at this time I want to congratulate both of them. Especially meaningful because Officer Lieutenant now, Kellerman, known him since he was a little kid, went to school with my daughter, and it's just so good to see local homegrown kids doing well and serving the city and doing a great job. So again, send out congratulations to both those. And Sergeant Feudo has been a very good canine officer too, so he's done a lot. Appreciate both of them. Under old business, we have a motion to consider Council's decision of September 4th, 2018.
This is a motion to reconsider council's denial of the permit to Jessica Boyd at 113 Union Street, tenant Barnes Rental LLC, a conditional approval for a type A daycare for children 6 weeks to 12 years of age, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 3 shifts. So if you reconsider and vote yes, you will allow the conditional use as originally proposed by Ms. Boyd.
Can I have it's just simply yes and no, correct?
Yes, sir.
I need a motion to consider by Rhodes, second by Janutus. Call the roll.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Saunders?
No.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
No.
Mezek?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Reports, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a handful of items here today. First, I just want to send my appreciation to all of the residents. Obviously, putting in place a parking ban sometimes isn't the most convenient thing to do, but it definitely helped, I think, the traveling public and our safety forces and our service department, who did a great job during the storm this weekend. Through this morning, we did go through a significant amount of salt, although we still have some left. It really helped clearing those roads. It's not something that we've typically done in the past, but knowing that it was coming, that storm was coming, we felt the need that we should put that in place. So I just want to send my appreciation to those. Obviously, there were some that didn't follow that directive. I know the police they were out enforcing that as well. And I think it also helped get the streets cleaned up as quickly as the guys did. So kudos to them. I just wanted to let council know, I know this is something, and I was quite surprised when I realized how long we've been working on it. It's the Northfield Road Bridge and some of the challenges that we faced with ODOT in their response to making the necessary repairs. And we started on this back in 2015. We went ahead and pulled all of our emails. And matter of fact, in the beginning of 2017, ODOT said that it was scheduled to be done in 2019. Well, it's 2019. And we've sent them notice again on top of all of the photos, and are looking at some direction on when that bridge is going to be repaired, especially the fence. So we're going to continue to push them, and hopefully we'll get that addressed when the weather breaks. I also wanted to mention that we turned over the keys a few weeks ago to the land bank for the Moonglow, and we've also filed 2 additional notice to proceed documents to the land bank for 295 Columbus as well as 500 Columbus. Those were part of our demo grant, so those will be the first. Those 3 will be the first that the land bank will start on. They'll be coming. Those buildings will be coming down fairly shortly. I want to give a kudos to our police department and all of our chiefs, all the way back to Chief Reed. And we were putting together some numbers from our SEAL, the SEAL Narcotics Unit, which was formed 15 plus years ago, and they've brought in millions and millions of dollars in confiscated funds. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. But they've been jamming. And I can tell you that the last 2 years, they've brought in $349,000 and $319,000 respectively. And those are our 2 highest years in the history of SEAL. And that shows the amount of work that they're putting in. So kudos to the police department on that. Same with our auxiliaries, and Lieutenant Kellerman, who oversees the auxiliaries, have been working, as I mentioned, to go through town identifying streetlights. I notified council last week that we put together, I think I said 6+ pages of lights, total of 118 that we found that were out. So we gathered those poll numbers and we submitted those to First Energy. When they're going to get around to fixing them, we don't know, but we've submitted them and we're going to follow up and make sure they do get those addressed, hopefully in a timely fashion. I want to acknowledge again PD and fire. Last year, our SRO officer happened to be visiting one of our schools, elementary schools, and he walked in and he kind of noticed that, some of the kids can be a little standoffish when a police officer walks in. And the head lunch lady found a program in another state that works to bring in safety forces into the school and eat lunch together. And it really breaks that barrier. And I would recommend that we consider acknowledging that lunch lady in the future. I think it would be great. She came up with a plan. She put this program in front of the administrators at the school. They welcomed it. And said, thank you.
No.
Sorry.
That's fair.
Needless to say, the administration supported it. We started last week, police fire. We went into central school. There was a little bit of uneasiness prior to lunch, but at the end of lunch, our Chief Stempel was taking selfies. There were hugs, there were high fives. So we're going to do this frequently. I think our next lunch date with the school children is in March. I think it's a great program, and it strengthens one of the things that we've been talking about is that community policing, and the more positive interaction that we can have in our children's day-to-day activity, whenever a negative comes along, should one, they won't be worried about it. We're there to help, and I think that plays a big, big role. So kudos to them for coming up with that, and kudos to Mrs. Molnar, who's the lunch lady, who took that to the schools. So well done. Friendly reminder that next Wednesday, the 30th, is the annual State of the City address at Light of Hearts. I also want to mention, a few months back, the city was exploring a new mass notification program. We identified the program that we wanted to use. We actually had a tutorial for it. It was going to be a drastic cost saving. Not only was the program better, but it was going to be a significant savings. And we were going to look to implement that soon. One of the things that had happened over the course of the last couple months is Cuyahoga County awarded their mass notification contract to Code Red. We use Code Red now. It's a good program. I don't know if it's one that we would choose. But what that means is with Cuyahoga County awarding that contract, they're going to be offering that to the various dispatch centers, who in turn will offer it to us. The good news behind it is it's going to be free of charge. We spend about $8,000 annually on the Code Red system, so we're not going to have those expenses this year. Is it the program that we would prefer to utilize? No, but it will do. And I know I mentioned the other program in previous meetings. At this point, it'd be our recommendation to stick with Code Red, especially the fact that it's free. So that's our plan at this point. And lastly, not sure if I'm stealing any of his thunder, but I do want to acknowledge Frank and his department. I believe, and I may have this wrong, Frank, but I think it's 28 in a row. It is. Good. 28 years in a row, Frank in the finance department under his leadership has received the Achievement of Excellence Award for financial reporting on behalf of the city. It's 28 years in a row that we've been awarded that. I think that says a lot to Frank, the department, transparency. That can never be questioned, and you, Frank, you've done an outstanding job, and I think seeing where we're going and seeing where we were 6 years ago is a testament to obviously your direction. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure all the city does too. So well done. End of report. Sorry if I stole your thunder.
Thank you. Mr. Law Director.
No report. We'd like to congratulate Frank and everyone. Mike, congratulated. Thank you all for coming.
Mr. Gambosi.
Yeah, I'd like to thank my staff too. Without them, we don't get this all accomplished. So 28 years in a row, less than 5% of the entities in the United States and Canada get this award. So it is a big award, and to get it 28 years in a row is a significant commitment by council, allowing us to do top-notch accounting and financial reporting and transparency, and it goes a long way. So I will say thank you to them, and thank you to my staff who did a great job on that. Actually, I was only going to speak about this issue though, but income tax. So moving on to new things and bigger and better, they're yet to come yet. So we had a couple of seminars already on e-filing with the new system. However, lack of attendance, we still have about 2,490 people to get to yet. So for those who did not want to brave the cold and know that they didn't want to thank you because it really was bad weather and they came out and still came out to hear us. But we were able to do webinars on all our programs. So we have a simple return on a webinar done by Tracy, and thanks to Heather, she put that together for us. I really do appreciate her efforts because there was a lot involved in that. And it came out very, very well. Big issue is make sure you get a PIN and register. We never had to do that before, but that's part of the new program, security, to allow you to get into the system, and it will get to us. It'll come directly to us now with that information, but we will require still for the first year, bring all your papers and send them in with the return. The program is not up and running yet. They had to do some maintenance this week, so I envision that will be up and running on Monday. Coincidentally, that's when the feds are starting to say you could start filing with them too. But so far the program looks very good. I will say it's once you get past the point of getting a PIN, it's pretty easy to follow. It's similar to our other program. I also programmed a webinar with a complex return. So if you brave it to sit there for 30 minutes and listen to me talk, which not going to get many takers on that. But we also have, if you don't want to hear the webinar, we have page by page PowerPoint that'll show you what will happen as you go step by step through the program. So if you're not one who wants to listen to the program, you can actually visually look at the program to see how it goes. And if that's still not what you like and you like the written documents, those are also on the website to show you step by step in writing how to get through the process. So all of that is available to everybody to take a look at. For those of you who want to do that, that will be easy to follow. But the main thing, getting the PIN, follow the instructions on the simple one. I would recommend going through Tracy's first. It'll take you into the process of an easy return, how to get a PIN, and how to process a W-2. And once you do it, I think you'll like it. It's a good program. That's the end of my report, and I'll see if I can also do, we'll see if we do another webinar, it's gonna have to be, and a public presentation, it'll have to be with the PowerPoint, because we're already live with that, and I can't use a demo anymore. So that's where we stand right now. But thank you for everybody's patience this year, but if you get past those points, you'll do well on that program.
Thank you. Before we get to councils, since you stole Frank's thunder, I'm going to steal some thunder too. As was announced at the last meeting, Mrs. Spinks was involved with a art contest downtown at the East 78th Galleries, Gallery Plus, and she was one of 10 finalists to get her painting put into the judging process, and as it turned out, she won, and it was awesome. There was some fantastic art there by many of the artists that were there, and for the fact that she come out #1, I just want to congratulate you, and it was well done, and I'm glad my wife and I got to do that. And with that, we'll go council reports. Mr. Janutus.
Thank you. Well, I want to congratulate Frank because Frank is, amongst us who see what he does. He's one of our superheroes, I think. And he's we count on him for so many different aspects having to do with money, and everything we do has to do with money. So it all, we always ask Frank for advice and his counsel, and we know he's a big hitter in some of the professional organizations that have to do with finance, and I just wanted to ask him, 28 years, did you start when you were 16 exactly?
Actually, I have a lot more than that under my belt in other places. So, yeah, I've been doing this kind of work since '86, so it's a long time.
Well, we're all scared of when you decide you want to leave, so we're anxious always about that. Hope you're here forever. It caught a little bit of some pictures on the internet of the safety forces having lunch with their school kids, and I just think that's a great thing because it was a seemingly real friendly thing, and we want our kids to realize that the cops are our friends, and because really we need the kids to feel that they could run to the cops whenever they feel threatened or whatever. And the police forces are much maligned in today's society, and it's really not fair in the case of our police, who are exceedingly friendly and helpful, I believe, and it's always been my experience with them. So any outreach with the kids and realize the police forces are really their friends, I think is a wonderful thing. And I'd also like to express my gratitude for Vic Fluharty's reconsideration of Ms. Boyd's request, and also Council's reversal of their previous vote. She provides a good service for our community, and she was able to demonstrate an impressive outpouring of support by way of many letters from her clients. So I think that was a good thing that we did. And lastly, I want to say we always hear we always hear phrases like, things are changing and things will never be the same. And truly our comfortable regional manufacturing jobs we've always enjoyed in retail and whatnot will likely never return. So I'm a firm believer that the American economy will only be restored from the grassroots. And because of that, I think it's important that our municipal government should respect and facilitate the growing number of people caused to have to work from their homes, because I really think that's the future of America, and it's just a coming thing. So that's it. Thank you. End of report.
Thank you. Mr. Fluharty?
I also would like to thank Frank and congratulate you, and Sandy too. I went down there Friday to check out the art displays. And I know why they made that statement or phrase, that you're a starving artist. I've never seen so many skinny people in my life down there. But that's just the way that business is, I'm sure. But getting back to the ward area, the snow plowing has been fairly well out that way, and we had a good connection with the police to get the cars off the street, and I might congratulate them for doing their hard work all weekend. And also Northfield Bridge is shoveled. I just went by there after we met earlier today, and both sides, so I don't know who did it, the service department or somebody. So tell them again, thanks, because that's a big area that gets people walk on. Keep them out of the streets, because that's a bad area to be walking from there to Giant Eagle for most people in my ward. So, and that's about it. So end the report.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
Okay, I'm going to start on where Vic just left off on the Northfield Road Bridge. Having been one of the engineers on the original bridge plans that were put on, that bridge has a 4-inch sidewalk overlay, and that entire 4-inch sidewalk overlay needs to be stripped off, sealed, and put back down. But before they do that, then they strip the 4-inch sidewalk. They need to clean the plates, the curb plates, and repaint them. And at the same time, of course, we're all well aware of the fact that don't lean on that fence because you may end up down below. That fence needs to be completely redone too. And what they don't realize is those fence posts that are inset into that are tied to the rebar that's in there. And that rebar is not a coated rebar. So if ODOT doesn't get going on some of that, we're going to start ending up with parapet walls starting to flake off too. So of course, those parapet walls, after all this other work is done, need to be sealed too. So if they want an explanation of what to do with it, that's it. So the Corten steel underneath it should be checked also, and I'm hoping the state regularly checks that. They're supposed to be. But Corten steel has not been holding up very well in Northeast Ohio. I think this is the only bridge that got the Corten steel that hasn't been painted yet. And this bridge is almost 40 years old now. So there's issues on that thing that need to really be looked at more than just what cleaning snow off of it and so forth. In any case, to the parking issue. We have an ordinance that states you must park within a foot of the curb, and almost every car that's parked on the residential side streets right now are more than a foot away from the curb, partly because you've lost anywhere from 1.5 feet to 2 feet on each curb side of the road because you can't plow it that close because there was nowhere to put the snow either. So a lot of these cars that are still parking on the road, even though we don't have a parking ban, are actually illegally parked. So it's going to be interesting. I watched Kimball go down some of the streets today, but they're not on the dead ends. Mine is a dead end street, which he's going to have to park or back down tomorrow, and the street's narrower by several feet. And of course, there's people that park and don't use common sense. So, I would hope that if nothing else, we would put out in the newsletter that you must be within a foot of the curb. So that means driving up onto snow piles in some cases, but we need to somehow instill some common sense in some of these people that are parking on the streets, especially the narrower streets. But that's not likely to happen either. Now, the other thing is I did notice with all this snow, a number of people either plowed their snow from their driveways out into the street and left it, or they took their blade and went back over and spread it evenly across the street. Or people were snow blowing it out into the street and hoping that the city would take care of it. All that does is get your neighbor ticked off, because when the snowplow does come back down the street, it pushes it into his apron. So it's one of those things where, once again, common sense isn't being used on a lot of this. So I don't know how we can instill some of that in that regard too. Which also brings you up to the other thing, which the fire department put on their website too, the fire hydrants. Given the large number of structural fires we've had in the last several months, including the one, was it yesterday?
Last night?
Yeah, last night. You know, if you don't clean your hydrant out and the house is in full blaze, it's going to take several minutes for them to clean it out and hook it up, and every minute that the fire's burning takes out a good chunk. So we need to instill some type of sense into the neighborhoods to keep your fire hydrants clean. If your neighbor that has the hydrant doesn't clean it, go out and clean it. You know, it could be a lifesaver at some point. So that does become a health and safety issue that could become critical. And lastly, I voted no on the daycare. I think it's a dangerous area. The increase of traffic in and out is not what you would desire in that specific area. And yes, they promised to put a fence in the backyard, but I don't know of too many kids that don't know how to climb fences either. So the kids are gonna have to be watched. When you start doubling the number of kids in a yard that's in a hazardous area to begin with, I think you're asking for trouble. So based on a health and safety issue, I voted no on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rhodes?
Evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this cold evening. I just have a few items tonight. Number one thing, I have one word for you: chocolate. We all love it, right? Chocolate walk tickets went on sale this past week, $10 a piece. I have it on good authority that at least 2 of the locations will be handing out alcohol as their chocolate treat. So that $10 ticket gets you at least two alcoholic drinks. We also have some fun activities planned while you're doing the chocolate walk, such as a selfie station and making s'mores. So it'll make a fun and inexpensive Valentine's date. The date of the chocolate walk is February